I'm going to read a sequence of poems that has a title. The title is Music Like Dirt. The phrase music like dirt is a refrain in a song by Desmond Dekker, who was a Jamaican singer, great singer. He died last year. I wanted to write a sequence of poems about the need for making in our lives. I hope the sequence will make it clear in what sense I mean making is necessary. I wanted to make a tapestry, not a tract, that revolved around this theme, and to draw into it the context of other poems, of other processes, sexuality, love, mortality, that are really inseparable from the importance of making in our lives. Each poem in this sequence has a title. The first poem is called For the 20th Century. It mentions a couple of things you may not know. Joseph Szigeti is a great violinist, my favorite violinist. K218 is Mozart's fourth violin concerto, and that's how Mozart enters this poem about the 20th century. For the 20th century, bound, hungry to pluck again from the 1,000 technologies of ecstasy, boundlessness. The world that at a drop of water rises without boundaries. I push the play button. Callas, Laurel and Hardy, Szigeti, you are alive again. The slow movement of K218 once again no longer bland, merely pretty, nearly banal, as it is in all but Szigeti's hands. Therefore, you and I and Mozart must thank the 20th century, for it made you pattern, form whose infinite repeatability within matter defies matter. Malibran, Henry Irving, the young Joachim, they are lost. A mountain of newspaper clippings become words, not their own words. The art of the performer. Music like dirt. I will not, I said, but as my body turned in the solitary bed, it said, but he loves me, which broke my will. Music like dirt. That you did, but willed and continued to will refusal. You confirmed 17 years later, saying, I was not wrong. Music like dirt. When you said I was not wrong with gravity and weird sweetness, I felt not anger, not woe, but weird, calm sweetness. Music like dirt. I like sentences like, he especially dug doing it in houses being built or at the steering wheel. Music like dirt. I will not, I said, but as my body turned in the solitary bed, it said, but he loves me, which broke my will. This is called Young Marx, and the body of the poem is made up of versions of a kind of crystallization of phrases in the writings of the young Marx. And all that in the poem is in italics. meant to indicate quotation. And then there are 3 lines at the end of the poem that are not in italics and are not Marx. Young Marx. That man's own life is an object for him. That animals build nests, build dwellings, whereas man contemplates himself in the world that he has created. That you cannot find yourself in your labor because it does not belong to your essential being. That estranged from labor, the laborer is self-estranged, alien to himself. That your nature is to labor. That feeling himself fleetingly unbound only when eating, drinking, procreating, in his dwelling and dressing up. Man erects means into sole and ultimate ends. That where he makes what he makes, he is not. That when he makes, he is not. Thus, the ground of our self-estrangement. Marx, in 1844, before the solutions that he proposed betrayed him by entering history. Before, like Jesus, too many sins were committed in his name. This is called for Bill Nestrick, 1940-1996. Bill Nestrick taught in the English department at Berkeley. He began the film studies major there. The central part of this poem, like the last poem I read you, has a passage in italics that is a quotation from Bill's writing. For Bill Nestrick, 1940-1996. Out of the rectitude and narrow care of those who teach in the public schools, a mother who would not let her son watch cartoons of Porky Pig because we must not laugh at someone who stutters. The mystery, your brilliant appetite for the moment. Quote, for Herbert, the aesthetic desideratum is unpremeditated art, not as natural or spontaneous, but as speaking of the spirit as it becomes conscious, of fidelity to the moment itself. The only appropriate gift is discovered to be inseparable from the giver, for man can only give himself. Unquote. In 1975, the magazine that printed your great essay announced he is writing a book on Herbert. You lived in the realm where coin of the realm is a book. And despite the fact that by the end of graduate school, you had already published 20,000 articles, you never published a book. Against the background of this bitter, mysterious lapse, your brilliant appetite for the moment. Little few. At birth you were handed a ticket. Beneath every journey, the ticket to this journey in one direction. Or say the body is a conveyor belt, moving in one direction, slower or swifter than sight. At birth, you were handed a ticket. Indecipherable rectangle forgotten in your pocket. Or say you stand upon a moving walkway, as if all you fear is losing your balance, moving in one direction. beneath every journey. The ticket to this journey in one direction. The next poem is called Advice to the Players. It's made up of prose sentences that are handled like lines in a poem. I think of it as a manifesto written by someone who doesn't believe in manifestos. The title, obviously, is from Hamlet's Advice to the Players. Advice to the players. There's something missing in our definition, vision of a human being. The need to make. We are creatures who need to make. Because existence is willy-nilly thrust into our hands, our fate is to make something. If nothing else, the shape cut by the arc of our lives. My parents saw corrosively the arc of their lives. Making is the mirror in which we see ourselves. But being is making not only large things, a family, a book, a business, but the shape we give this afternoon, a conversation between two friends, a meal, or misshape. Without clarity about what we make and the choices that underlie it, the need to make is a curse, a misfortune. The culture in which we live honors specific kinds of making, shaping or misshaping a business, a family, but does not understand how central making itself is as manifestation and mirror of the self, fundamental as eating or sleeping. In the images with which our culture incessantly teaches us, the cessation of labor is the beginning of pleasure. The goal of work is to cease working, an endless paradise of unending diversion. In the United States at the end of the 20th century, the greatest luxury is to live a life in which the work that one does to earn a living and what one has the appetite to make coincide by a kind of grace, are the same one. Without clarity, a curse, a misfortune. My intuition about what is, of course, unprovable comes, I'm sure, from absorbing as a child, the lives of my parents, the dilemmas, contradictions, chaos, as they lived out their own often unacknowledged, barely examined desires to make. They saw corrosively the shape cut by the arc of their lives. My parents never made something commensurate to their will to make, which I take to be, in varying degrees, the general human condition, as it is my own. Making is the mirror in which we see ourselves. Without clarity, a curse, a misfortune. Horrible the fate of the advice giver in our culture, to repeat oneself in 1,000 contexts until death or irrelevance. I abjure advice giver. Go make you ready. This is called Stanzas ending with the same two words. Stanzas ending with the same two words. At first I felt shame because I had entered through the door marked, your death. Not a valuable word written unsteeped in your death. You are the ruin whose arm encircles the young woman at the posthumous bar before your death. The grass is still hungry for you, fed by your death. Kill whatever killed your father. Your life turning to me again said before your death. Hard to grow old, still hungry. You were still hungry at your death. This poem is only 3 lines long, and I'm always worried that it's going to disappear before you can take it in. It's called The Poem is a Veil. The poem is a veil. Veil, as if silk that you in fury must thrust repeatedly high. What the eye, your eye, naked, cannot see, catches, clinging to its physiognomy. Luggage. You wear your body as if without illusions. You speak of former lovers with some contempt for their interest in sex. Wisdom of the spirit, you imply, lies in condescension and poise. Fucking, I can feel the valve opening. The flood is too much or too little. I am insatiable, famished by repetition. Now all you see is that I am luggage that smiles as it is moved from here to there. We could have had ecstasies. In your stray moments, as now in mine. May what was not rise like grief before you. Hammer. The stone arm raising a stone hammer dreams it can descend upon itself. When the quest is indecipherable, what is left is a career. What once was apprehended in passion survives as opinion. To be both author of this statue and the statue itself. This is called Injunction. And think of it as the injunction heard by an artist faced by the fact that the elements of our world are essentially unreconcilable. As if the names we use to name the uses of buildings x-ray our souls. War without end. Palace, prison, temple, school, market, theater, brothel, bank. War without end. Because to name is to possess the dreams of strangers. The temple is offended by, demands the abolition of brothel, now theater, now school. The school despises temple, palace, market, bank. The bank, by refusing to name depositors, welcomes all. Though in rage, prisoners each night gnaw to dust, another stone piling under the palace. War without end. Therefore, time past time. Rip through the fabric. Nail it, not to the wall, rip through the wall. Outside time. Nail it. Heartbeat. Ear, early tune to hear beneath the call, to end eating flesh, sentient, suffering beings. Creatures bred now for slaughter will then never be bred. Less life, less life. Tuned to hear still the vow, solemn and implacable, I made as a kid, walking a sidewalk in Bakersfield, never to have a child, condemn a creature to this hell. As the prisoner chorus in wonder is released into the sun, ear early tuned to hear beneath the melody the ground bass. Less life, less life. And this is the penultimate poem I will read. It's called Legacy. At the end, it joins two famous quotations, one from Robert Frost and one from William Carlos Williams. Legacy. When to the desert, the dirt, comes water, comes money to get off the shit dirt land and move to the city, whence you direct the work of those who now work the land you still own. My grandparents left home for the American desert to escape poverty, or the family who said, "You are the son who shall become a priest." After Spain became Franco's, at last rich enough to return, you refused to return. The West you made was never unstoried, never artless. Excrement of the sky our rage inherits. There was no gift outright. We were never the land's. And the last poem is called Lament for the Makers. The title is the title of a famous and great poem by William Dunbar, who was an early Renaissance writer in Scots. It's a title that's been used in the 20th century by both W.S. Merwin and Robert Pinsky. Lament for the makers. Not bird, not badger, not beaver, not bee. Many creatures must make, but only one must seek within itself what to make. My father's ring was a bee with a dart through it in diamonds against polished black stone. I have it. What parents leave you is their lives. Until my mother died, she struggled to make a house that she did not loathe. Paintings, poems, me. Many creatures must make, but only one must seek within itself what to make. Not bird, not badger, not beaver, not bee. Teach me, masters who by making were remade, your art. Thanks.